All right, it looks like we have got quite a few schools joining us already. And since it's past, let's get going, as we don't want to cut into any of the time for the questions. So first of all, thank you so much for everyone joining, and welcome to the very first Eco Action Educate webinar. So for any of you who don't really know the sort of scale of this project, this is a project by Eco Action Families, and we have managed to fund the project that has allowed the license to be given to all the schools in Brighton and Hove to watch the film 2040, along with additional educational resources and then these live webinars as well. So it's a brilliant project that's really, really exciting. As I said, this is the very first of our live webinars. We're going to be aiming to do them sort of every half term or so. And this project, this first one, has already given access to over 12,000 students to the film 2040, which is just a brilliant opportunity to start getting this film and this education into schools. So a little bit about the structure of today's webinar. We are going to be introducing, or letting our 4 panelists introduce themselves in just a few minutes. Before that, we are going to hear from our student representatives and hear a little bit about them. After we've had the introductions from everyone who is on this call, we are then going to go straight into the questions. So during the introductions, I know that we have received some questions already from a number of different schools. If you're watching live and you have questions from your students, then do by all means put them in the chat box on this Zoom call, and hopefully we will get to them. We have already had quite a few questions come in, so we definitely won't be able to get to all of them, but hopefully we can address any of the upcoming questions, and our student representatives will be choosing the questions. So before we go on to our panelists, let me introduce you Ben and Rania, and they're going to tell them a little bit about themselves. So Ben and Rania, over to you.
Hi, so thank you so much for inviting me. I'm Rania. I'll be co-hosting this event alongside with Ben. I've just graduated from the University of Sussex, and I've been living in Brighton for 3 years, and I've been doing in my time here a lot of climate action work, especially with young people. I've helped organise the first youth assembly on climate in Brighton. So we had basically a group of 10 young people from Brighton come together and talk about how to improve and make transport more sustainable in the city. And we came up with a list of suggestions to then send to the council. So it was a really fantastic way to involve young people in decisions made about climate change in Brighton. So I've been very involved with that, and I've been helping to co-host quite a few events with MPs on the climate emergency. So we had one with schools, where all schools were invited to submit some questions about their worries about climate change, or what they thought the MP should be doing. So it was a great way to connect sort of local politicians with young people and make sure that their voices were heard. So yeah, that's a little bit about me, and I'm really excited for this event, and I'll pass on to Ben.
Hi, yeah, thank you, Rania. So yeah, again, thank you for inviting me to this event. I always think these things are great to get students involved with experts and expand their knowledge base, as well as just open the conversation up. A little bit about me. I just finished sixth form recently, and I should be moving on to uni next year, hopefully. And so this past year, I've been involved in quite a few climate action activities. So Rania and I co-hosted 2 other Q&As with MPs and councillors. I also sit on the Brighton Hove Youth Council, and we're currently running a campaign to promote sustainability and also talk to local businesses about moving towards being plastic free. And I'll keep it short because I'm sure our panelists have a lot to say, but yeah, I'd just like to say I'm excited for this event. So I'll hand over to Kat first to introduce herself.
Hello, everybody. Yeah, my name's Kat. I've lived in Brighton for about nearly 30 years. I'm from Sydney in Australia originally. And when I got here, I was truly, truly horrified that there was no recycling. And so, yeah, ever since I just hate waste, basically. That's kind of my mantra. And because we have a linear economy where we take resources, we make things, we use them, and then we throw them away, there is just an awful lot of waste. And so probably my dream is for capitalism to decouple itself from endless pointless consumption. And that's just because there's just way too much stuff in the world, and loads of it gets thrown out, and it either just gets buried or incinerated. So one of the things I do is run a reuse charity called Freegle, and there's 35,000 people in Brighton use it. And what that's for is if you've got something that you don't want anymore, then you can list it on Freegle. And out of those 35,000 people, there's bound to be someone that wants whatever you've got that you don't want. And about 10 tons of stuff gets given away every single month. So it's a really great way of extending the life of anything, whether it's clothes or electronics or furniture or sports equipment or you name it. You can, as long as it's legal, you can Freegle it. So yeah, that's just an easy thing that anybody can do to kind of be more resourceful and less wasteful. And then I'm involved in lots of little sub projects around the city, and they're all mainly about preventing waste. I guess another thing that you can just go and look at, it's on the corner of William Street and Grand Parade Mews, is the Waste House at the back of the University of Brighton. And that opened 7 years ago, and I sourced all the materials for that project, and the entire building is constructed from waste. And it was really just to highlight the problem around plastics and overconsumption and just how dreadfully wasteful we are. And if we could do much better, we could design things better, and we could behave better. And I probably said too much, but anyway, yeah, I just hate waste basically and try to do anything to prevent it.
Thank you so much. I think we all realise the importance of recycling and how beneficial it really can be.
That was great, thank you. So Ella, would you like to introduce yourself next?
Yeah, sure. Hi everyone, I'm Ella. I work for Sussex Wildlife Trust, where I've actually got 2 jobs. One of those is Living Seas Officer. So basically I work on any sort of marine conservation issues within the whole of the county, both East and West Sussex. So that includes working with volunteers to collect citizen science data along the coast. So that's intertidal surveys, so basically rock pooling and collecting data on all the species and habitats that we have along the coast. And then also diving surveys for qualified divers. Again, similar surveys in that we go diving, collect data on the species and habitats, and then that can then inform legislation such as protected areas. So we know where things are, where there are threatened species and habitats and things like that. Also working on lots of policy things, like again, marine protected areas and our local marine conservation zones, of which Sussex has 9, which is great. Most recently, I've been working a lot on the Kelp Forest project. So we've got it's the Sussex Kelp Restoration Project. And this came about because we have lost in Sussex about 95% of our kelp. It used to be a very dense, rich kelp forest, mostly in the west of Sussex. And the local fishing authority, the Ethicul, the Inshore Fisheries and Conservation Authority, wrote a new bylaw to exclude trawling from a massive area of the whole of the Sussex coastline, with the aim that excluding the trawling will help regenerate the Sussex Kelp Forest, because the trawling is where you have massive nets that are dragged along the seafloor, and it basically has prevented the kelp forests from growing back. There are other issues involved as well, but that's sort of one controllable factor that was stopping the kelp. And so now that is actually in force. We did a lot of lobbying last year. It was agreed, the bylaw was agreed at a local level at the beginning of 2020, but then it had to go through Parliament and get signed off by the Secretary of State for Environment, George Eustace, and that happened in March this year, which was amazing. After lots of lobbying, loads of our supporters got involved, wrote to their MPs. It was fantastic. And now that is in place, and we've got some new funding now from the People's Postcode Lottery to really take that project forward. And sea natural restoration for our coastline, which is really, really important. So my other job, I work on a project called Wild Coast Sussex, and that is a community engagement project that's running all along the Sussex coast with the aim to inspire local communities to care about their local coastal environment, which hopefully will then lead to more environmentally friendly behaviours from people. So we're working with local primary schools, running wild beach classes on the beach to try and connect kids to their local environment. We are working to remove ghost fishing gear from the ocean. We've been working with the charity Ghost Fishing UK, and we've already collected, I think, over 200 kilograms of ghost fishing gear. So that's abandoned or lost fishing gear at sea that just basically continues fishing, killing marine wildlife. And also working to recycle end-of-line fishing gear, because at the moment, if a fisher's net, becomes unusable, which they do, they get holes in and become unusable. At the moment, it's just all sent to landfill. So we're trying to find ways of getting that recycled, because it's a huge amount of plastic waste from that. And we're also working with young people, sort of 16 to 25s. We are going to be running lots of events, hopefully soon. Obviously, it's all being curtailed because of COVID, but now everything's opening up again. Hopefully, we will be on track with that very soon. So yeah, that's me, I think. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ella. That was really interesting to hear and see how important it is to preserve our wildlife in the ocean, especially after seeing a documentary like Seaspiracy. I think a lot of people have probably seen that. It's quite very shocking. So important for work like this. So yeah, could we have Will next?
Sure. Yeah. My name's Will Cottrell. I'm chairman of Brighton Energy Co-op, and Brighton Energy Co-op's thing is we rent roof spaces and then we put solar panels on the roof spaces, and we sell the electricity from the solar panels to the people who live under the roof. So we work with about 60 organisations in the South Coast area. We've got solar panels on PACA and Blatchington Mill. So if you can see them out of your windows, then we own them and we sell the electricity to those schools. We're talking to Cardinal Newman at the moment and King's School as well about putting solar panels on their roofs. We're worth about £3.5 million. So 600 people in Brighton have put money into us to pay for those solar panels. So it's community owned. So all the solar panels we have on the various roofs in the city are owned by these hundreds of people across the city as well. So it's a sort of nice, locally owned, locally used model. My background is in business. Well, there's two backgrounds really. One is in business. I used to run 20 years ago, I started a magazine in Barcelona. Actually, when I was 14, I had a car cleaning round in my local village in Sussex. I ran a yoga holiday company for 10 years. I ran a website business for 10 years as well, before starting Brighton Energy Co-op about 11 years ago. But also, I have a background in direct action. So 20 years ago, I was with Greenpeace and doing various things with Greenpeace. I've been part of the anti-fracking movement in Sussex since 2013. I'm part of Extinction Rebellion. And I think, alongside the business side of things, the activism side of things is equally important. It's a bit of a carrot and stick as far as I'm concerned. The business does the good stuff, but the stick is that if you don't do the good stuff, then people are going to get out in the streets and make a noise about it. So that's kind of my two strands of eco action, if you like.
Thank you, Will. It's interesting to see the plethora of things you've done and how it all kind of interlinked together, ultimately have the kind of goal of protecting the wild and the environment, which is really nice to see. So our final panelist is Matt. So if you'd like to introduce yourself.
Thanks, Ben. Wow, what a panel. I'm very, very excited to be here. Thank you for having me. So what I do, I empower each and every one of you to make the world a fairer and more sustainable place just through the power of your purchases. This all came about because I was at the University of Brighton started in 2016. And part of the reason I moved there was because it was one of the green hubs of the nation, and I was very excited about it. And I got there and I was getting really annoyed with myself because I was like, hang on a minute, I'm still sat on my sofa ordering from Amazon, ordering from all of these big corporates. And I was like, there's hundreds of brilliant independent businesses all around us doing good things. And I was like, why am I not supporting these businesses that are doing the way, business the way it should be for the benefit of people and planet? Whereas I was realizing that all the money I was spending was contributing towards the world I didn't want to live in. And it was a huge facepalm moment for me. And I started kind of digging into it a bit more, thinking, well, I need to start, putting my money where my actual heart is. And I was like, I don't even know who is Ethicul. There's so much greenwashing where big corporations spend a lot of money on their marketing campaigns to look a lot greener than they are. For example, Adidas with their sustainable range of trainers. And it made me think, well, hang on, why are not all of their trainers sustainable? Why is it only just one range? And the more I was looking into this, the more angry I was getting with it all. So I was like, oh, you know what, I'll just start something myself. So I was like, I'm going to make being ethical so much easier for everyone and actually give people a bit of an incentive to do it, because so many of us find ourselves sitting on the fence wanting to live a more ethical lifestyle, but you don't know where to go and you don't know how to actually peel back that greenwashing layer and actually support a business that are not exploiting the people and the planet. So that's why I started Ethicul in my last year at Brighton University, to make sustainable living easy and reward people for doing it. So we work with over 50 businesses in and around Brighton, and we accredit them with our ethical badges, whether that be them reducing their waste, being a living wage employer, and then we just give the community access to these businesses to know that they can, be the change they want to see in the world. And when they spend £5, £10 or so on, then they know they're supporting a good business and they're getting something back, because we started a reward scheme. So basically every £1 you spend, you earn ethical tokens back. And then these tokens can then be used for exclusive rewards at other sustainable businesses in and around the city. And it's just been amazing. Like, if I was going to ever suggest doing anything, just if you believe in something, just do it and see how you get on. So it's been like an incredible experience for me so far. I loved every minute of it. And to work with so many brilliant businesses and to have a community around me, it's been really cool. And we're doing things at the moment. So we've launched our own bingo challenge for Plastic Free July. So get involved and live a plastic free lifestyle as well. That's me. Thanks, Ben.
Thank you so much, Matt. Obviously, I'm aware of what you guys do, and I think it's great what you're doing in Brighton. I'm so happy that you based it here as well, because there's so many great independent businesses here, and I think we should always kind of promote local spending. So now those are the introductions. We can move on to the question section of this event. And this first question is from PACA, and this is directed at Ella first. And the question is, why is ocean regeneration so important? And as we live by the sea, what can we do to protect the ocean? Yeah, so the regeneration of marine ecosystems is really, really important for so many reasons. Healthy ecosystems benefit the planet and us in so many different ways. So, for example, healthy ecosystems such as kelp forests and seagrass beds, they draw down carbon, which can help mitigate climate change. One of the parts of the Sussex Kelp Restoration Project is we don't actually know yet how much a healthy kelp forest how much carbon it will draw down. So that's one of the research strands of the project, is to try and work that out. But a healthy kelp forest will be drawing down more carbon than one that's not there. They also protect from storms. So with climate change, we know that storms are going to get more frequent and more intense. And having things like kelp forests, for example, or like coral reefs in tropical regions of the world, they dampen wave energy. So they protect coastal
towns from storm damage and protect from coastal erosion as well. So it's a natural defense. Instead of having to put in solid sea walls and things, you're using natural, basically it's called nature-based solutions, using nature-based solutions to protect our planet. Also increases any healthy ecosystem will increase the biodiversity. So you'll have a wider range of species, which will be important for many different reasons. Example again, kelp forests, they act as natural nurseries for juvenile fish, which then spill over into other areas and make the ocean as a whole more healthy. And then that also keeps our fisheries more sustainable and helps with food security. And then was the other part of the question, how to protect? Yeah, we live by the sea, and how do we protect this incredible ecosystem that we have? I think often a problem with marine conservation is that it's out of sight, it's out of mind. You know, you can't see what's going on under the waves. And I come across a lot of opinions from people who live in the UK who think that UK seas are sort of grey and boring and empty, and that's absolutely not the case. They're incredible places and they absolutely deserve and need our protection. And so, you know, as individuals, you can do really simple things like every time you go to the beach, make sure you do a 2-minute beach clean. You know, we have the mantra as part of our Wild Coast Sussex project is leave the beach cleaner than you found it. So it's a really simple action that you can take every single day almost. Even in the streets, you know, when it rains, rubbish on the streets will be washed down onto the beaches, which will then eventually get into the sea. So always just, you know, recycle and throw your litter away. And, you know, recycling really should be sort of our last port of call. It should be our last resort. We should be trying to reduce and reuse things before we actually recycle. So try and reduce your single-use plastic use, things like that. Obviously, climate change is a massive issue for marine ecosystems as well. So things like cycling more instead of driving. I know you guys are in school, you can't drive yet, but cycling instead of getting your parents to give you a lift or take the bus. You can also get involved with campaigns as well. Like I said, with Sussex Wildlife Trust, we ran the campaign to try and get this bylaw in place, and that was really successful. Like over 2,000 people kind of responded to our initial call. And normally this, you know, it really, really helped get this bylaw put in place. You can also try to follow different marine conservation organisations on social media, and then you'll be informed of the issues, and then you can get involved in many different ways. Also, if you do choose to eat fish, just make sure you choose sustainable seafood. You can look for like the blue tick on certain seafood packages, which tells you it's sustainable, or just generally buy local. Or, as I do, I choose not to eat seafood myself, and then I'm not contributing to overfishing. But yeah, basically, there's loads of different things you can do as individuals. You know, we need individual action, and we also need to come from the top-down level, which comes from lobbying Parliament to get better legislation in place.
Thank you, Ella. Loads of great points there. I mean, we're so lucky to live by the sea, so I think it's so important that we look to kind of protect and, you know, enjoy it, but also kind of be responsible with it. So
absolutely, yeah.
Great. So our next question is also from PACA and directed to Kat, but open for discussion with all the panelists. And it is, how can we make our school more environmentally friendly?
Yeah, great question. I mean, how can we make everything more environmentally friendly? So I do a lot of, I should have said in my intro, but I do a lot of work with schools, and I've been supplying lots of schools in Brighton and Hove with secondhand or pre-loved furniture and goods so that they don't buy new. So one of the ways that I make money is I clear buildings for people when they're vacating or if they need to renovate. And instead of getting skips and just smashing everything to bits and chucking it out, I'll be employed to kind of audit the contents of what's left in buildings. And then I find a new home for everything. And, you know, everything from paper clips to chandeliers and sort of everything in between. And so over the years, there's quite a few of the staff members in schools know what I do. And so if they need a new whiteboard or something for the classroom, instead of buying one new, they'll kind of shoot me a message to see if I've got one that I can give them. So just for schools themselves, how they manage their assets is a really, it's a really important thing to do that properly. So first of all, to consider what you do buy brand new. Is it durable? Is it made well? Can it be, is it manufactured locally? Does it really have to come all the way from China? But also asking questions like, do I really need it? Do we actually need to buy something new? Or actually, could we borrow that from one of the other schools because we only need it for a week or the weekend? And also, you know, could you be coming to people like myself and other organizations and purchasing things secondhand or pre-loved? I mean, even IT equipment, there's amazing secondhand refurbished computers that can be bought instead of buying brand new stuff. So I think, you know, that's one for management, but for the kids to be aware of that, because kind of, you know, ask your teachers and the leaders at your school why they bought brand new artificial grass and laid lots of plastic down on the playground. And then I just think as individuals, you know, really think about what you consume yourself. And I know it's quite exciting as a teenager when you sort of get some independence and some money, and it's quite exciting to buy lots of clothes or to buy electronics or gadgets or fun things. But yeah, if I could just try to encourage you to not always buy brand new stuff. And it's really important to build up the secondhand market, you know, whether that's charity shops or using Freegle where things are free. Yeah, we need to make that economy really buoyant and challenge the brand new economy. And so it's really important that you don't always buy brand new stuff. And then also just think like, do you even need to own something? Could I just borrow it? Could I hire it? You know, and there's kind of some great things popping up around the city called Library of Things and tool libraries. And there'll be more coming in the next year or so. And they're great hubs that operate in the community where you can go and borrow a ladder or a push bike or a bread maker or whatever it is that you need, which means you don't have to actually own something. You can just kind of make use of it. So yeah, think about sharing and not buying so much new stuff, and nag all your teachers to be more resourceful.
Thank you so much, Kat. Yeah, I think one of the biggest challenges of our time is to change our way of consuming. And I think capitalism always tells us to buy more, wanting the new things. Obviously, adverts play a massive role in that. So yeah, so important to do research and where you can buy stuff secondhand or where it actually comes from. And so yeah, thank you for your
great website, isn't there, Epicol, where you can find locally sourced really good products. So that's fantastic to have that in the city, because it's kind of making it easier to do the right thing, which is, I think, nearly all of us on the panel, that is a big part of the work that we all do, is just trying to make doing the right thing easier and more accessible to more people. And so yeah, exciting times to have all the schools on board wanting to change.
Thank you, Kat.
And again, if any of the other panelists have any opinions they want to share on the questions directed at the first panelist, please do. But I'll move on to the next question. Again, this is from PACA, directed at Matt first. And the question is, what steps can people in Brighton Ho take that will have a positive impact on the planet?
That's a fantastic question. That really is. For me, step number one is to think. That's all it is. Be more conscious of your actions. And as kind of reiterating on Kat's point, is that think, do you really need to buy this new? Is there a different option that I could take that means that my money doesn't go to a big corporation that is exploiting our own resources and may not even be paying their own employees the right wages for them to eat and feed their families? Can I put my money to a place that actually goes somewhere that does good, rather than a place that is just turning the wheel again and is just driving more and more exploitation of our resources? And that's for me, just to think about your purchases and to think about what you do and your actions. So I think you both mentioned earlier about just transport. Easy things like that. If your parents say, oh, do you want a lift? You can go, oh, you know what, I'm going to cycle today, and give them a reason for it. Tell them why you're going to cycle and talk about it with your friends. So, you know, just have a laugh with your friends. If someone brings in a packed lunch and it's filled with single-use plastic and wrapped up in cling film, have a bit of a laugh about it and say, oh, you know, did you know you could be, you know, doing this instead? Or have you tried these new beeswax wraps, because they're recyclable and you can use them over and over again? And I think that's what needs to happen more and more, is that sustainability has almost become a taboo subject, and people really tiptoe around it because it can be quite a preachy area, and you want to feel empowered that you can all make your own difference and you can all talk about sustainability on a level playing field, no matter if you're not an MP and you're not the person who's kind of pulling the strings and making the decisions. As a collective, we can all do amazing things and drive real positive change, but you just have to think about it, and then you got to start talking about it, and it will all just come from there.
Can I jump in on that one, Ben?
Of course you can. Well, thank you.
Yeah, you know, I mean, steps to have a positive impact on the planet. It's unfortunate that most things in this world are run by old white men, and you know, that's a sort of power structure that is there. And one thing that there's an organization called OPEC, which is the oil producing countries. They all get together, and the chairman of that's an Iraqi bloke. Oh, he's not white, he's an older guy. And he said the biggest threat to the oil industry at the moment was the school strikes, because his daughter in Iraq was part of a school strike in Iraq and was giving him hell at home about what the hell he was doing to the planet. So the chairman of one of the biggest oil organizations in the world was actually, you know, scared into action, not scared perhaps, but prompted into some kind of action by his daughter. So I would say, you know, to have a positive impact on the planet, organize. You know, the school strikes have demonstrated that there's a big power in schools which hasn't been noticed before, and the impact of that is just, when you work together with other people, you're much stronger than if you're working on your own. And it's great to sort of change your consumption patterns and buy different things and do that kind of thing. But if you're with a gang of 10 other people or 100 other people or 1,000 other people, then you're so much stronger than you are as just an individual. So, you know, to have a positive impact on the planet, find other people that think like you do and work with them to do what you all want to do together.
Thank you, Will, and thank you, Matt, again. Two really inspiring answers there. I think we can all take something particularly from that, from you know, the school strike, showing that you can actually make an impact, which I think people, especially young people, will struggle with. They may think, oh, if there's only about 15 of us creating this society or going out and striking, they might not have an impact. But clearly, from your story, Will, they can. So thank you both for your answers.
So Will, this is also directed for you. So it's from Scarlett from Blatchington Mill. Can the planet go fully renewable?
Can the planet go fully renewable? Well, actually, I was just looking at Blatchington Mill's production from your solar on Blatchington Mill. We're doing about 40% of the school's energy at the moment as we speak. So, and that's sort of fairly, at the moment, the UK is about 40% renewable, something like that, through offshore wind, solar, mostly, and hydro. So like dams and things like that. Can we go fully renewable? Oof. You know, there's certainly the technology there. There's certainly the money there. Is there the political will there? Yeah, maybe in some countries. Other countries like Saudi Arabia, maybe not. So, you know, technologically, yes, we could do it. we don't need any new fancy technology to be able to switch our energy consumption to renewably sourced. Financially, there's plenty of people out there in the City of London, big money guys who will back these kind of projects. I guess but there is also this sort of elephant in the room. Saudi Arabia is a country that's built on oil. They don't do barely anything else except produce oil. So if they stopped doing oil, the country would fall apart. How do you convince them to do something else? Is a political question. So I guess there's various levels of answer to that question, technologically, financially, and politically. So 2 out of 3, I'd say yes, and 1 we're struggling with.
Great, thank you, Will. So I guess lobbying plays quite a big role to influence the third one, politics of it. Yeah, so over to you, Ben.
Thank you, Rania. So our next question is for Matt again, and this is again open to other panelists afterwards. Is if big companies know that they are damaging the planet and people's lives, why do they keep doing it? And that question comes from us, actually.
I think it does come down to profit a lot of the time, and as we've talked about, we are still in a capitalist society, and I don't think that's going to be changing anytime soon. And I feel like when you give people an inch, they can take a mile, and especially when you're talking about big corporates. But I think that's where we can really show our power now. And just kind of reiterating on Will's point about the schools and the actions that schools can take to really actually create fundamental change. It actually can be quite scary at times for these big corporates to think, oh, these are all, this is our children here shouting at us, telling us that we need to change. And we often see corporations completely in a completely different light to individuals, but you got to remember that all of us individuals are running these big corporations and they're all human. So if you just get together with your friends and start kind of creating these movements together and saying, you know what, we're not going to support you because we don't like that you're doing X, Y, and Z because you're really exploiting our planet's resources, then fundamentally they're going to have to change at some point, but you just have to keep putting the pressure on. It's just a shame that often governments are subsidizing a lot of these industries for still doing the wrong thing. But if anyone else would like to chip in on that, I'd be glad to hear people.
I was just going to point out that literally the 3 richest people in the world are in a race against each other to leave the planet. Yeah, and most of them have made their money by destroying the planet. And it's a very sad irony that what they're now spending all their wealth on is how they can actually go to another planet and exploit that. So, I haven't bought anything from one of those big online companies for well over 10 years, and you can have a really wonderful life without buying stuff from really bad companies that are not only exploiting the planet, but they exploit people. And so, as in the film that everybody's watched, Kate Rayworth is on there talking about the donut economy. And then there's the Ellen MacArthur Foundation, which runs a circular economy kind of organization. And there's 100 companies that are part of the CE 100. They've all signed up to transition their businesses to a circular economy model. One of those companies is Unilever. And if you Google that, Unilever are responsible for hundreds and hundreds, thousands of different retail and wholesale companies. And, I think they're responsible for something like 40% of the products available in the Western world. So there is kind of there's a tension where we want those really big companies to change how they operate and to be better and to not exploit people and planet. And it's a tricky one, whether you support them in that transition and believe that they're really going to do it, or do you boycott them and go, I'm not, and the problem is it's quite difficult to boycott all the bad companies in the world, because, you know, most of them, if you drill down, have got big problems at the core of their business model. So, you know, I mean, I boycott loads and loads of products, but then there are lots that I can't, because I'm just, you know, I still got to eat and go about my daily life, and we're all kind of trapped in a really broken system. But yeah, I just think, you know, you could stop buying plastic inflatable unicorns, for example. Just stop buying pointless crap. And you would automatically just not be sending money to some of those businesses that should not be able to make money off pointless tasks, you know. But while they're still making a profit, they're going to operate. So somehow we need to decouple the well-being of people and people's ability to earn money and be independent. We have to decouple that from pointless consumption of things that we just don't need. And so as individuals, you can just stop buying pointless tack, you know, and if we stopped buying it, they would stop making it. Yeah. And encourage your friends as well.
Thank you, Kat.
I think there's a sort of wider issue, which is often sort of easier to ignore than deal with. You know, there's a kind of I was reading a study a few years back about money, and on average, if you ask somebody, you could ask yourself, how much more money would I like to be happy? You know, and if you've got £100, the average answer is £200, and if you've got £200, the average answer is £400, and so on. It's on average, it's about twice as much as what you've got already. So if you've got £1 million, you want £2 million, and if you've got 100 million, it's 200 million, and it's always this kind of more thing, and it never ends. And this kind of you know, wanting to have more money is what drives these big corporations and the people involved with them. And I think, you know, this is the system that we live under, and it's capitalism. 10 years ago, when I was involved in a direct action group called Climate Camp, you know, the sort of thrust of that is that the very system that we live under, you know, this kind of market economy where we buy and sell things all the time, this is called capitalism. And there's a quite famous quote that says, it's easier to imagine the end of the world than it is to imagine the end of capitalism. But capitalism drives this consumption economy. It's the way we've structured things, and it's how, the question for me is how we could change capitalism, as Kat says, to be less focused on just more money, and perhaps we could do it to focus on well-being and happiness rather than increasing wealth all the time. So I think, you know, that ignoring the fact that we live under capitalism is, and trying to sort of put sticking plasters on the problems that capitalism creates is I don't think is going deep enough into the problem, if you like. It's a good question, but it has a quite a deep answer, I feel.
Thank you. I guess an enormous role that we need to play now is imagining alternatives, and I think the movie 2040 is such an important tells us about important narratives to have, really, about changing our way of living, changing our way of consuming, changing our attitudes towards the environment and nature. And so maybe for
You've gone on mute, Rainier.
Sorry. So yeah, a question for you, Ella. Damon describes making the film as an exercise in fact-based dreaming. What are your fact-based dreams for the future?
I mean, for me, in terms of marine conservation, is really, we know that if we give nature a chance to bounce back, it does. You know, there's studies all over the world where there's been marine protected areas put in place where basically like no damaging activity is allowed, including fishing, any extraction of sediments, anything at all. And those areas really do bounce back incredibly fast. So we know that that works. So I think for me, it's allowing nature to recover on its own without interference from us, because yeah, we know it works. And sometimes, yeah, we might have to give it a helping hand. Like there's many restoration projects around the world where, you know, we're have like oyster nurseries to try and regenerate the populations, and seagrass bed restoration. And again, with the kelp project, we're hoping that it will be able to regenerate through natural regeneration, so basically just letting it be. But if it doesn't, then we will start thinking about how to help it along its way. There's different methods you can do, and there's going to be lots of research programs to help us you know, do pilot studies on that if needed. We're working with lots of universities who, you know, have the know-how on how to do all these things. Like I think the knowledge and the technology is out there, so it can absolutely happen. Nature can recover if we give it the chance. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Ella. Ben, did you want to?
Yeah, so this will be our final question, and we'd like to hear from each of the panelists, if you're all right with that. And so this question is, again, the movie obviously is based in 2040. So the question is, how would you like to see Brighton looking in 2040? And can we start with Matt, please?
Oh, Ben, you're putting me on the spot here. That's a huge question. 2040, I would really hope to see a different perspective on sustainability at all levels. So we talked about Brighton's recycling. I think Kat mentioned it before. I found the same thing. I started trying to recycle in the city of Brighton. I thought, oh, well, this is going to be a piece of cake. It's one of the most sustainable places in the whole nation, isn't it? And then I looked at the council's website, and I was like, oh, well, I can't really recycle anything. The only thing I can really chuck in my recycling bin is like a plastic bottle, and stuff like that. So from, you know, council level, there needs to be a different perspective on sustainability. If they want to talk the talk, they've got to be able to walk the walk. And in terms of kind of everyone on this call, it's just about having more open conversations about it and reducing that kind of that nature of it, you know, it being a taboo subject, and it just being more open, and you're challenging things openly. You know, when you go back to your parents' homes, you're challenging how they spend their money, you're challenging the decisions they are making in their kind of corporate roles, and you're getting together with your friends and family, and you're actually making real change from the bottom up. And I feel like if we all just start working together a bit more and having more conversations and thinking differently of sustainability and thinking about the social side of sustainability as well, it's not just the planet's resources, it's also about the people. And if you notice that there are companies kind of coming up in the news that are found to exploit their people, like Boohoo, they were paying their workers in a Leicester factory less than half their national living wage, and they were offering them no equipment to prevent them from getting coronavirus during the peak of the pandemic. And you think, we're giving them our money all the time to keep feeding this. So yeah, just keep having people and planet top of mind and start having more conversations.
Thank you so much, Will. And can we move on to Kat, please?
Oh, I'd like loads of things to be different by 2040. So hopefully we will have retrofitted all our housing so that it's insulated properly. It all has renewable energy, which means that, you know, the nearly 400,000 people that live in the city will not have to use so much energy to heat or cool their houses. I don't think there should be individual cars in the city centre. Probably, you know, the square couple of miles in the city centre, it should just be public transport, shared transport, all electric, non-polluting. We really need to nail the kind of waste management issues in the city, something I've been trying to improve in collaboration with other people in the city for nearly 3 decades. So it's a long journey, but we really need to get better at managing our waste. And then I'd like to see the high streets looking different and not full of retail shops or shops that encourage addiction, you know, gambling shops and all the rest of it. So it would be lovely to see more community based activity going on in the high street, and more sharing and caring, and, you know, more lovely things like that doesn't involve buying brand new stuff, so that our kind of communal areas where we all come together are not focused on just shopping, which is just completely insane. So, but anyway, yeah, I mean, there's so many things that we can hope that are better and different, but I think fixing the housing stock and getting polluting cars out of the city centre would be like really at the top of my list, despite the fact that I'm, you know, the resource goddess and obsessed with waste. But I think if we do some of those things, the benefits are really apparent to individuals when the air's cleaner and when they don't have to spend so much money heating or cooling their house, that like they really do improve people's lives in a very just basic way. Yeah, more trees. So many things we could hope for.
Yeah, thank you, Kat. I mean, it's wishful thinking, but you'd hope that it comes to fruition. Will, if you're ready, if you'd like to answer the question.
Yeah. I think I was swimming off Newhaven last. It sort of links to Ella's work last week, and I was absolutely amazed that about 5 meters away from me, a seal popped its head up, and which is, apparently is a harbour seal, and there's a whole load of them living offshore in Brighton, or towards the marina.
They come in the river, Will. I live there, and I can see them
really?
in my house in the River Ouse.
Right.
Yeah,
right.
they're really cool. And there was one there for years called Rusty, and he died a couple of years ago. But they're quite famous in Newhaven, the seals.
Oh, right. Well, I'd quite like some seals in Brighton then, please. As well as the dolphins, which I understand there's 5 or 6 dolphins living, this kind of stuff. So more wildlife in the seas around would be amazing. But in terms of, humans, I think for 2040, I'd love to see more people standing up and taking action. I seem to be saying a lot of quotes today, but one of the guys who founded Extinction Rebellion, Roger Hallam, is a controversial figure because he shouts his mouth off like me. But one of his sayings is that the worst way to get things to change is not to upset anybody. And, things don't change if you don't stand up and make a noise about it. Being nice and doing what everybody is used to doing doesn't really change anything. And so, the more people that stand up and make a difference, like the people, the others on the panel, who are out there, the more change happens. And in a way, that you guys out there in the schools, you're sort of inheriting 40 years, 50 years, 60 years of environmental activism. There's been many people out there over the years who've all stood up and made a change at some point in their lives, or spent their whole lives doing it. And that's the reason we've got to where we are now. But to keep that going, and growing, we need more people to do it. So really, for 2040, ideally it's this sort of the movement, or the amount of people, individuals standing up and saying, I'm not going to stand for this, I'm going to do something about it. That's really what I'd love to see 2040.
Thank you. I'm sure we'd all like to see kind of activism grow. And also I found the point about it being kind of a taboo and a preacher topic quite interesting, because I believe it has sort of kind of transitioned to that, and it really shouldn't be that, right? It's a clear issue. It's an important problem. It should be more open to discussion. And finally,
activism should be valued as a sort of change agent, rather than being this sort of sort of look down. Well, the authorities don't like it because you're challenging power, and so that's why they look down at you. I'd be really interested to hear about how people who were involved with the school strikes and that kind of activism were received or perceived, because I don't know anything about that. But yeah, from being a sort of negative force to something that should be perhaps celebrated as something, you know, it's something that is really important.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I attended the school strikes, and to see the thousands of people or students that were there was really encouraging.
Amazing.
So Ella, would you like to answer the question now, please?
Yeah, sure.
Thanks.
So yeah, for me, I'd love to see restored marine ecosystems, or at least well on their way to being restored back to full, healthy, biodiverse ecosystems, including the kelp forest, which when it was, you know, fully dense and healthy, it stretched all the way from Chelsea all the way up to Brighton, and then possibly, you know, it could expand even further given the right conditions. I'd also like to see, the government have been recommended recently that we should be implementing highly protected marine areas. So at the moment we've got marine conservation zones, but they still allow different activities in them depending on the site, basically. But these highly protected marine areas will stop all damaging activity, including fishing from them, which, you know, will really give excellent protection. I'd really like to see some of them in Sussex. I mean, we've got on our doorstep, we've got the Beachy Head West Marine Conservation Zone, which is there to protect like the chalk reefs and the rare species such as the short-snouted seahorses from exploitation. And, you know, if we got these highly protected marine areas, it would really make a massive difference. I'd also like to see people feeling more connected to nature, like people, especially in big cities such as Brighton. You know, even though we've got the sea and the South Downs right by us, I still think a lot of people, we're so disconnected from nature. We kind of see ourselves as separate, and I'd like that to change. You know, we are on this planet, we are connected to nature, and I'd like, people to feel more connected to nature, because then I believe it, you know, if people do feel more connected, then they're more likely to protect it. And yeah, so part of that would be wanting like sort of nature and conservation education embedded into the school systems. And in general in the city of Brighton, like more green spaces. I want it to be a more equal and like accessible city for everyone. I think aiming for a circular economy, which is obviously what CAT's all about, it would be absolutely amazing, where we recycle and reuse everything and nothing is thrown away. I mean, yeah, as everyone else has said, there's so many things that I would like to see. It's kind of an endless list, really. It's impossible to say it all, but I think everyone else has made excellent points as well. Like, I definitely agree with everything else that everyone has said.
Yeah, thank you for all the panelists for all the answers, and particularly the last one. I think it was really, at least I hope I can speak for the students listening, was very inspiring, and I'm sure that this event will spark a lot of change. And that concludes the question section of the event. So I'd like to hand over back to Greg, who will wrap up.
Thanks very much, Ben. And again, I just want to say thank you so much, Ella, Kat, Will, and Matt, for the brilliant webinar. It's been so enjoyable to hear all of you guys talk from your own passionate backgrounds, and it's just incredible what all of you are doing. And I hope all the students that are watching today get an incredible amount of motivation and inspiration from you guys. Also, Ben and Rania, obviously as well, you guys are massively inspiring. I think it sort of shouldn't be missed that you guys are doing a lot of what these guys are saying. You guys are taking action, you're standing up, you're really, you know, active and doing your part, which is brilliant and will be inspiring. Hopefully, maybe 12,000 students who hopefully get to watch this. So yeah, thank you so much for everyone joined today. And thank you all the students who are here and watching live. And if you're watching on a recording as well, thank you so much for watching 2040 and joining Eco Action Families on this webinar. As I mentioned at the start, we will be doing these as regularly as possible. I think we're planning to do them every half term. The next one will be in the autumn after your summer holidays. So do keep an eye out for the next Eco Action Educate webinar and program. I have put the Eco Action Families website in the chat for all the teachers. It is ecoactionfamilies.org. .life is our website. We have a specific website page just for Eco Action Educate. You'll find the links to all of the panelists, sort of companies or associations, if you want to find out more about them and about the companies or organizations that they work for. And just a final thank you and wrap up from all of us here at Eco Action Families to everyone who's joined and been involved in the webinar. I think it's been a brilliant success and has been hugely inspirational to everyone who's joined. But thank you, and I'll hopefully see lots of people in future webinars after the summer holidays. So thanks again for joining, guys. Bye.
Bye.